I turned my back on my own father in the middle of my wedding reception as he tried to apologize. I know it sounds cruel, but I did it because my cousin had just shown everyone a picture of my sister's important event, a brunch 5 miles away. My name is Genevieve, and this is the story of how my own father tried to burn my world down just 3 hours before I said I do. The heirloom lace of my wedding gown felt like a second skin. The scent of lavender and oak barrels drifted in from the Napa Valley vineyards outside, and the California sun was casting a perfect golden glow. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. Then my phone buzzed on the antique vanity table, a harsh, modern sound in a room filled with timeless elegance. It was a single text message from my father, Richard, the man who was supposed to walk me down that sun-drenched aisle. The man who, after my mother passed, had held my small hand and promised he would never miss a single important moment. His message shattered the illusion of perfection. He wasn't coming. Not to the ceremony, anyway. My older sister, Brenda, was being honored at a last-minute Women in Real Estate brunch, an event she had apparently just told him about, and he said he couldn't possibly miss her big moment. His text read, "This is a huge career step for Bren. I have to be there. I'll try to make the reception." I read the words once, twice, a third time. The room started to feel like it was tilting on its axis, the cheerful chatter of my bridesmaids fading into a dull roar in my ears. He chose her. Again. Over this. Over me. I know so many of you watching right now have felt that exact sting of being made to feel like a second choice by the very people who should have put you first. If you know what that feeling is like, just tap the like button for me, so I know I'm not alone in this. A strangled sound escaped my throat, something between a sob and a scream. Before I could even think, my arm moved on its own. I snatched the phone from the vanity and hurled it across the room. It hit the beautiful, exposed brick wall with a sickening crack before tumbling onto a plush Persian rug. The entire bridal suite went silent. My maid of honor, Zoe, froze with a mascara wand halfway to her lashes, her mouth a perfect O of shock. "Jen?" she whispered, taking a hesitant step toward me. What in the world just happened? But I couldn't answer her. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it was wrapped in iron bands, and the elegant suite with its panoramic view of the vineyards felt like a shrinking cage. All I could see was myself at 12 years old, standing in the chilling rain at my mother's graveside, my small hand completely swallowed up in my father's. He'd knelt down, his eyes red-rimmed and his voice thick with grief, and said, "It's just us now, kiddo. I promise you, I will always be there for the big stuff. Always." That promise had been my life raft for years. What a liar he turned out to be. Or maybe he just had a different definition of big stuff than I did. It's amazing how a single moment in the present can make you question every promise you've ever been given in the past. It's a special kind of heartbreak. Drop a 1 in the comments if you've ever had a promise broken that completely changed how you saw someone. The wedding dress that had felt so right just minutes before now felt like a costume for a play I no longer wanted to be in. The clock on the mantelpiece ticked on, each second a hammer blow counting down to a ceremony without the one man I thought I could always count on. Zoe, ever the practical one, walked over and carefully picked up my phone from the rug. The screen was a spiderweb of cracks, but as she held it, it began to vibrate, buzzing insistently against her palm. She glanced at the fractured screen. "It's your Uncle David," she said, her expression a mix of confusion and concern. My Uncle David. My dad's older brother. The man who taught me how to ride a bike when my dad was too busy. The one who drove 300 miles just to see my college art show because my dad had a last-minute work thing. With a trembling hand, I took the phone. "Hello?" My voice was a fragile whisper. "Jeannie?" His voice, warm and steady as it had always been, was a balm to my frayed nerves. "Your father just called me. Sweetheart, I don't have the words for what he's done." A sob I hadn't realized I was holding back finally broke free. "He's not coming, Uncle David." "I know," he said, and the controlled anger in his tone on my behalf was unmistakable. "And I am so sorry." There was a brief pause, just a moment of static on the line, and then he cleared his throat. "Genevieve," he said, his voice now firm with purpose. Would you? Would you do me the incredible honor of allowing me to walk you down that aisle? The question hit me with the force of a physical wave. Tears streamed down my face, but these were different. They weren't tears of heartbreak, but of a profound, overwhelming relief. "You do that for me?" In a heartbeat, he said, his own voice cracking just a little. "I'm 45 minutes out. Don't you worry about a thing. I'm coming." Hanging up with my uncle, a fragile sense of hope began to stitch my shattered nerves back together. Maybe this day could be salvaged. My bridesmaids, sensing the shift, let out a collective sigh of relief. But then Zoe came toward me, her face pale and her own phone clutched in her hand like it was a venomous snake. "Jen," she started, biting her lip. There's something I think you need to see." I wasn't going to show you. I didn't want to cause drama, but after what just happened, I think you have to know. She held out her phone. It was a screenshot of a text exchange between her and my sister, Brenda, from 2 weeks ago. Brenda had sent it by mistake, clearly thinking she was texting a different friend. The first text from Brenda read, "Dad's still on the fence about ditching the wedding. He keeps talking about making it work to attend both." The other person had replied, "But he promised Jen, right?" And then, the final, heart-stopping text from my sister. "Don't worry, I have a plan to make sure he stays with me. He'll never make it to Napa in time." It was followed by a panicked follow-up. "OMG, wrong person. Delete this." The air left my lungs in a painful rush. It wasn't bad timing. It wasn't my father making a difficult, last-minute choice between his two daughters. It was a setup. A calculated, manipulative game designed by my own sister to intentionally wound me on the most important day of my life. Whether it's late at night where you are or the middle of the day, I want you to think about this. Have you ever seen the mask slip from someone you love and realize the person underneath was a total stranger? If the answer is yes, share your story in the comments below, because that's who my sister became to me in that instant, a stranger. And just like that, the last 20 years of my life clicked into focus with sickening clarity. It was like one of those hidden pictures I'd been staring at my whole life, and suddenly, I could finally see the monster in the patterns. The sabotage wasn't new, it had just gotten bolder. I suddenly remembered my high school graduation. My father had promised, sworn, he'd be in the front row. An hour before the ceremony, Brenda called him in a hysterical crisis because her car had a flat tire on the freeway. A flat tire that, I later found out, miraculously fixed itself an hour later, but not before he'd missed me accepting my diploma with honors. He'd arrived flustered and apologetic, just in time for the parking lot traffic. Then there was the opening night of my first solo art exhibit 5 years ago in San Francisco. A huge milestone for me. My dad had booked a non-refundable plane ticket from Denver to be there. The morning of his flight, Brenda accidentally spilled a full pot of coffee on his work laptop, supposedly destroying a critical presentation he needed. He spent the entire weekend at a repair shop, missing my entire event. I found out months later from a cousin that the destroyed presentation was just a rough draft, and the laptop only needed a simple reboot. Every single time, there was a perfectly plausible, dramatic, last-minute emergency. And every single time, Brenda was at the center of it. She had spent 2 decades methodically positioning herself as the sun in his universe, and in doing so, had cast a permanent shadow over me. And the most painful part? He let her. He chose the drama, the noise, the perceived need, over his quiet, consistent promises to me. She was the puppeteer, yes, but he was the one who had been dancing on her strings for my entire life. Just as I was drowning in that sea of bitter memories, there was a soft, composed knock on the suite door. Our wedding planner, Chloe, peeked her head in. "Genevieve? Eleanor is here, Liam's mother. She's asking if she could have a word with you." My heart sank a little further. The last thing I wanted was for my future mother-in-law to see me like this, a tear-streaked, mascara-smudged mess just hours before her son's wedding. But I gave a weak nod, and a moment later, Eleanor glided in, the picture of elegance in a dusty blue dress. Her warm, practiced smile faltered the second she saw my face. "Oh, my dear child," she said, her voice full of a genuine kindness that threatened to undo me completely. She crossed the room in a few steps, her gentle perfume of gardenias filling the air, and took both of my hands in hers. Her hands were cool and steady. David called Michael on his way here, she explained softly, referring to her husband. He told us what happened. I am so sorry for what Richard has put you through. She led me to a small settee and sat beside me, never letting go of my hands. When I married Michael 35 years ago, she began, her gaze distant for a moment. My own father refused to come. He didn't approve of Michael's career choice as a professor. Not ambitious enough for his standards. She shook her head slightly. For years, I twisted myself into knots trying to win back his approval. Genevieve, I spent a decade of my life letting him break my heart over and over again. Please, hear me. The question isn't why he did this today. The real question is, are you going to give him and Brenda the power to keep doing this to you for the rest of your life? Eleanor's words didn't just comfort me, they landed with the force of a revelation. It was as if a switch had been flipped in a dark room inside my soul. For the rest of your life? How many holidays had I rescheduled? How many of my own achievements had I downplayed so they wouldn't conflict with one of Brenda's manufactured dramas? How many times had I swallowed my disappointment and made excuses for him? I thought about Liam's family, how Eleanor had remembered I was allergic to shellfish from a single offhand comment months ago, how his father, Michael, always asked about my latest art project with genuine interest. That wasn't just kindness, it was what real family felt like. I straightened my back, pulling my shoulders from their defeated slump. Something inside me solidified, turning from fragile glass into tempered steel. At that exact moment, my cracked phone, still on the settee beside me, lit up with a text from Liam. It read, "My mom told me. Whatever you decide to do, even if it's to call the whole thing off and elope to Vegas right now, I'm with you. I love you." And that was it. Fresh tears welled, but these weren't for the father who had abandoned me. They were tears of gratitude for the man and the family I was choosing. "I'm not going to let him win," I said, my voice clear and steady for the first time all day. This day isn't about who didn't show up. It's about the man waiting for me under that oak tree. It's about us. You know, we all face these forks in the road. So I want you to comment with a 2 if you think the right move is to wait and hope for people to change. Or comment with a 3 if you believe in choosing your own happiness. Right here, right now. As if summoned by my newfound resolve, the suite door opened again, and there stood my Uncle David. He was slightly out of breath, his silver tie a little crooked, and he was already dressed in his tuxedo. It was clear he had broken every speed limit between his home and this Napa vineyard. His eyes, the same warm blue as my mother's, found mine across the room, and the love in them was so pure and unconditional that my heart felt like it might burst. "Look at you," he breathed, stepping forward and wrapping me in a hug that felt like coming home after a long, brutal storm. "Absolutely stunning, Jeannie. Thank you for coming." I whispered into his shoulder, my voice muffled by the fabric. "Nothing on earth could have kept me away," he said, pulling back, his hands resting on my shoulders. "And I brought something for you." From his jacket pocket, he produced a small navy blue velvet box, its edges softened with age. He opened it to reveal a single strand of luminous Akoya pearls, glowing with a soft, warm light against the worn satin lining. They weren't flashy or modern, they were timeless, imbued with a history I could feel just by looking at them. "These were my mother's," he explained, his voice thick with emotion. "Your grandmother. She wore them on her wedding day back in 1958. I've kept them safe all these years, waiting for the right person in the family to wear them next." My breath caught in my throat. "Uncle David, I couldn't." "You can and you will," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "She would have wanted you to have them. You embody her strength and her grace, Genevieve. This is where they belong." He carefully lifted them from the box and fastened the delicate clasp at the back of my neck. They felt cool against my skin, like a shield of love. The heavy oak doors to the vineyard estate swung open, and the soft, elegant notes of a string quartet playing "Here Comes the Sun" washed over us. The brilliant California sunshine warmed my face as we stepped out onto the aisle, a path of soft green grass lined with thousands of white rose petals. Ahead, I could see our guests rising to their feet, their faces a beautiful blur of smiles. My Uncle David's arm was linked through mine, solid and reassuring. In that moment, I knew he wasn't a replacement for my father. He was the person who was meant to be there. Every step we took together felt deliberate, like we were rewriting the definition of family with each footfall on that sun-drenched path. Halfway down the aisle, my eyes found Liam, waiting for me under a massive, ancient oak tree. And the look on his face, it shattered me in the best possible way. Tears were streaming freely down his cheeks, but they weren't tears of pity. They were tears of profound pride, of overwhelming love, and of gratitude. He wasn't just looking at his bride, he was looking at a woman he had seen walk through fire that morning, and he was honoring her strength. When we finally reached the altar, my uncle squeezed my hand one last time. He turned to me, then to Liam, and with a clear voice that carried over the hushed crowd, he said, "It is my honor, born from love and choice, to present her to you." He placed my hand in Liam's. It's nearly midnight here in Hanoi where I'm recording this, but I know it's daytime for many of you. I want you to take a second and think of the Uncle David in your life, the person who showed up when you needed them most. Who was it? You don't have to name them, just tell me what they mean to you in the comments. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blissful, sun-drenched haze. Our vows were tearful, our first kiss was electric, and walking back down the aisle as Mrs. Genevieve Thompson, with Liam's hand holding mine, was the most triumphant moment of my life. The reception was held in a beautifully restored 100-year-old barn, draped in thousands of twinkle lights and overflowing with peonies and eucalyptus. The air was thick with the sound of clinking champagne glasses, joyful laughter, and a fantastic swing band. Liam and I were in the middle of our first dance, swaying to Etta James, completely lost in our own little world. It was perfect. It was over Liam's shoulder that I saw him. My father, Richard, standing awkwardly in the grand doorway of the barn. He was wearing a suit that looked like he'd thrown it on in a hurry, his hair was disheveled, and he was scanning the crowd with a lost, anxious expression. He looked less like the father of the bride and more like a man who had stumbled into the wrong party entirely. Liam felt me stiffen in his arms and followed my gaze. "He actually came," he murmured, his voice low and protective, ready to spin me away if I gave the signal. A few hours ago, the sight of him would have either filled me with volcanic rage or a desperate, hopeful leap in my chest. But now, I felt nothing. Just a quiet, hollow sense of finality. Too late. I whispered back to Liam, and I was surprised by the complete lack of bitterness in my own voice. It was just a fact. Like stating the sky is blue. Some doors, once you walk through them, can't be reopened. Some moments, once they are missed, are gone for good. He hadn't just missed the ceremony. He had missed the moment where his presence still mattered. After the dance, as Liam went to greet some guests, my father finally cornered me near the champagne tower. "Jen, honey, I am so sorry," he began, his words rushing out. The traffic out of the city was a complete nightmare. A total gridlock on the Bay Bridge for over an hour. "I was busy getting married, Dad," I said, my voice as flat and cold as the ice in the champagne bucket. "You could have made this easier on everyone." He pressed on, his voice taking on a whiny, self-pitying tone. "Push the ceremony back an hour. You've always been so inflexible. Made what easier?" I shot back, my voice rising slightly. "Your choice?" Before he could answer, my cousin Mark stepped up to us, his face grim. "Sorry to interrupt, Uncle Richard," Mark said, though he didn't sound sorry at all. "But I think you both need to see this." He held up his phone. On the screen was Brenda's Instagram story, posted less than an hour ago. It was a picture of her and a dozen friends clinking mimosas on a sunny restaurant patio. The location tag? A trendy brunch spot less than 5 miles from my dad's house, in the complete opposite direction of the Bay Bridge. And the caption, written in Brenda's cheerful, loopy font, was the final, devastating blow. "Celebrating my big award. So glad Dad chose to be here for my special day instead of getting stuck in traffic. Number family first." My voice was barely a whisper. Her career event? Was brunch? The color drained from my father's face as Mark swiped to a screenshot of a group chat he'd been accidentally included in. Brenda's message read, "He totally bought the important brunch story. Mission accomplished." We've all seen how lies can unravel everything. I'm sitting here in Hanoi, and it's almost midnight. a time when the truth often feels closer. I want to ask you something. What's the biggest lie you've ever seen exposed, and what were the consequences? Share your thoughts below if you feel comfortable. My father stared at Mark's phone, his mouth opening and closing silently like a fish out of water. The cheerful swing music from the band suddenly seemed to mock the raw, ugly silence that had fallen between us. I didn't know, he finally stammered, turning to me, his eyes wide and desperate. Jeannie, if I had known she was lying like that, you would have what, Dad? I asked. My voice dangerously quiet, all the tears and hysteria from the morning now baked into a hard, calm resolve. Kept your promise? Been a father? Shown up for me, just once, when it actually mattered in my entire life? By now, a small circle of silence had formed around us. Guests were starting to turn their heads, their smiles fading. Sensing an audience, my father straightened up, puffing out his chest. I want to apologize, he announced, his voice carrying across the dance floor. To my beautiful daughter. Number. The word was sharp, absolute, and it cut through the murmuring. Everyone stopped to look. Not here, not now. But I need to explain, he pleaded, his face turning a blotchy red. No, I repeated, and this time the word was filled with the strength of every broken promise, every missed graduation, every lonely milestone. You don't get to make a public spectacle to absolve yourself. You made your choice weeks ago when you started looking for an excuse. You sealed it this morning when you sent that text. Now, I'm making mine. In that instant, I felt it. A literal snap. The invisible, toxic tether that had bound me to his approval for 29 years just broke. The lifelong, aching need for him to finally choose me evaporated, and the absence of it left me feeling not empty, but light. Painfully, beautifully free. Enjoy the rest of the party, Dad, I said, the words holding no malice, only a profound finality. And then, I turned my back on him. I didn't watch to see his reaction. I didn't need to. I walked 3 steady steps and found myself enveloped in a circle of unwavering support. Liam was there, his arms wrapping around me instantly. His mother, Eleanor, reached out and squeezed my hand, her eyes saying everything her words didn't need to. His father, Michael, stood beside her, a silent, protective sentinel. They didn't ask questions or demand explanations. They didn't add to the drama. They simply closed ranks around me, creating a quiet, safe harbor in the middle of the storm I had just unleashed. From the corner of my eye, I saw my Uncle David approach my father, who was now standing completely alone at the edge of the dance floor, a solitary, pathetic figure. I couldn't hear their words, but I saw David place a firm but gentle hand on his younger brother's shoulder. I saw him speak quietly, his expression not angry, but deeply sad and resolute. Then, I saw him guide my father away from the celebration, steering him toward a quiet corner of the bar where he could no longer be the center of attention. He was handling it. He was protecting my day, my peace, my new beginning. My father looked so small to me then. No longer the giant whose approval I so desperately craved, but just a man diminished by his own poor choices. Liam held me close, and I leaned my head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. It's late on a Monday night here in Hanoi, a perfect time for quiet reflection. I want you to take this moment to think about your chosen family, the friends who are more like siblings, the in-laws who became parents. These are the people who form our true foundation. Tag someone in the comments who is part of your chosen family and just let them know you're thinking of them. A year can change everything. It's our first anniversary, and the late afternoon sun is streaming through the bay windows of Eleanor and Michael's home in a quiet suburb of Chicago, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. The scent of a roasting chicken fills the house. There's no drama, no shouting, just the easy, comfortable rhythm of people who belong together. I rest a hand on the gentle swell of my belly, a 7-month testament to the future. Our daughter. A new generation, a fresh start. Liam's arm is wrapped securely around my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder as we look through a photo album from the past year. The pages are filled with images of our new, blended reality. There's Thanksgiving, with all of us crowded around this same table. Christmas morning, with Uncle David teaching Liam how to properly carve a turkey, a role he has stepped into with quiet grace. There are a few photos of my father, Richard, from the monthly dinners we started having 3 months ago. At first, it was just awkward coffee in a neutral cafe. Then, he started coming over. He's still hesitant. A man walking on eggshells, trying to learn a new language of accountability. As for my sister, Brenda, I haven't spoken to her since the wedding. She moved to Austin, Texas, 6 months ago. She sent a generic congratulations card after Liam posted our pregnancy announcement. Sometimes, absence is the healthiest form of presence. Healing hasn't been a straight line. It's been messy and slow, a process of building new bridges while still remembering why the old ones burned down. But looking around this room, at the family we have forged through choice and forgiveness, I know we're building something that will last. The doorbell rings, and a few moments later, Liam ushers my father into the living room. He's holding not a bottle of wine for the hosts, but a large, dusty box. "Sorry, I'm a little late," he says, his eyes finding mine immediately, bypassing everyone else. "I was in the attic looking for something." There's no flimsy, unbelievable excuse about traffic. Just a simple statement of fact. He sets the box down on the coffee table and carefully opens it. Inside, nestled in yellowed tissue paper, is my mother's old film camera and several round carousels of photo slides. "I found these," he says, his voice quiet but clear. I thought you might want to see them." Michael helps him set up an old slide projector against a blank wall, and the room goes dim. The first image clicks into place, bathing the room in a warm, grainy glow. It's a photo of my mother, young and vibrant, her hands resting on her own pregnant belly. Me. Slide after slide, we see her journey into motherhood. "I wasn't always a good husband to her," my father says into the quiet darkness, his voice thick with an emotion I haven't heard in decades. "And I know I failed you. I can't change the past, Genevieve. God knows I wish I could, but I would like to be a good grandfather. If you'll let me. I want our little girl to know where she came from, to know her grandmother's smile." Tears are rolling down my cheeks, and this time, even Eleanor is dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. It's the most honest thing he has said to me in 20 years. It isn't an excuse, it's a confession. In that moment of raw vulnerability, a tiny crack appears in the wall around my heart. I reach out and take his hand. "One day at a time, Dad," I whisper. And for the first time, it feels like a promise. As the projector clicked through the last of my mother's smiling photos, I looked around that warm, quiet living room. Liam was beside me, his hand resting protectively on my belly, where our daughter was sleeping. Uncle David was watching my father with cautious, hopeful eyes. Eleanor and Michael were smiling, radiating a quiet strength that held us all together. This was my family, some bound by blood, some by marriage, and all of us connected by the conscious choices we made to show up for one another. This messy, complicated, beautiful, and profoundly real family was the one I had chosen, and the one that had chosen me right back. And that's the lesson I really wanted to leave you with tonight. Family isn't just about the people who share your DNA, it's about the people who see your pain and choose to sit with you in it. It's about having the courage to turn your back on a dynamic that is breaking you, and the strength to walk toward the people who are trying to build you up. We can spend our whole lives waiting for an apology that may never come, or for someone to finally see our worth. But our value isn't determined by their inability to see it. You have the right to draw a line in the sand. You have the right to choose peace over performance, to choose your own happiness over someone else's toxic expectations. My journey with my father is far from over, and forgiveness is a path you walk one day at a time. But my story of choosing myself is complete. If you believe in the power to write your own story, to define your own family, and to live a life that is true to your own values, then I truly hope you'll subscribe to this channel and join our community. Thank you for letting me share this piece of my heart with you. Be kind to yourselves, and remember to show up for the people who always show up for you.